to put this gently, Cricut?
You have failed this city.
Yeah, that about sums it up. So many of you found my channel through my little hack to trick the Cricut into printing a full page of sticker paper, primarily by creating a jig with printed registration marks that Cricut uses to line up the print and cut feature. What was nice about this hack was that it could be used on a 12 by 12 mat, even though the jig was slightly bigger than the mat, as long as you told Design Space you were using a 12 by 24 size mat. Or at least that worked on the older Explorer Air too. So I mentioned in a video in January how my older Explorer Air 2 met with an unfortunate end and had to be replaced. It was about 8 years old, so I didn't feel terrible about replacing it, especially since the Explorer 3 was on sale at the time. But when I got it, I was met with several frustrations. The Explorer 3 and more recently the Explorer 4 has been redesigned in a way that makes my sticker hack a little more difficult to do. For starters, there is now a sensor where the mat goes in. Part of this is to detect their so-called smart materials, which they allow you to purchase, and you can use them in the machine without actually having to stick them to a mat. Which, I'm sorry, even if you can argue that you get a whole extra 0.2 in width, I just can't justify the cost. Even if the cost per square inch is the same as a roll of Orcal, it's largely wasted because you're using that extra material in order to help hold the material into the machine. So you end up losing more material on the edges. Granted, if you find sticky mats to be extremely frustrating, I can understand why you would want to use this feature. My bigger frustration is the fact that the Explorer 3 and the Explorer 4 now check for mat size, running an extended length of the mat on its initial load. Now it's not enough just to trust that you're going to put the right size mat in for your project. It must confirm that the right size mat is in the machine and that you're not trying to do some crazy hack with a smaller size mat. But honestly, that's just one of the many complaints that I have about Cricut that I wanted to bring up. Another is the fact that the registration marks take up so much space on a sheet of paper. Cricut has to know that many people use this print and cut feature on a letter size sheet of sticker paper. They've even updated it to work with an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, allowing for a cuttable area, the equivalent of a standard size sheet of paper, an area of which I might add you can fit onto a 12 by 12 mat with those registration marks. I really don't understand this limitation, especially given its popularity. If anything, you could sell mats with the registration marks printed on the mat and a sticky area in place where everything lines up so that you can allow users to do a full page print and cut. I mean, cash cow product idea right there, guys. And here's another thing I don't understand. Why is it that the Cricut can only cut one pressure setting at a time? Now, if you're just cutting one material, you might ask, why is this an issue? Well, what if you only want to cut the material to the backing in one portion and maybe all the way through in another? Say to make it easier to pull off the mat or to weed later on. Or maybe you want to create a page of stickers that have kiss cut stickers built within a larger sticker sheet that you would like to die cut. Now, there are hacks around this. Sure, it usually involves duplicating the designs multiple times, attaching them, making sure they're lined up, and then essentially it tricks the Cricut into maybe just doing one pass for the kiss cut and then like 3 passes for your die cut. But this requires additional time because you're having to do multiple passes, and it needs you to have your settings dialed in so that those layers work correctly and you're getting the kiss cut that you want and the die cut that you want. Which, by the way, Cricut does not allow your custom settings to be saved in a universal way. There's no universal library that you can go in and click through. If you get a new machine and your old one's gone and you haven't like saved your Cricut settings, the pressure and the number of passes like to a separate document where you can remember it, those settings are gone. You cannot access them and you have to go through the frustrating, lengthy process of testing material over and over again to find those perfect settings. Because again, you can only run one cut setting at a time. And while you have control over the cut pressure and the number of passes, you have no control over the cut speed on Cricut. There's two settings, normal and fast, which can spell disaster if you're trying to do some type of like intricate cut work, because even a normal speed might be too fast for this and you might end up getting edges being pulled up despite how sticky your mat is. Also, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but does it seem like the design space software just goes insane sometimes? I know crashes are common, but I really feel like just weird things randomly happen in the middle of software. Files won't want to load, or they'll suddenly disappear, or you'll send something to the Cricut and it doesn't want to cut properly. And it's not because you haven't loaded the same settings before, like just turning the machine off and back on, you might suddenly produce correct results. It just keeps acting weird at times. And based on the Cricut Reddit page that I've seen, I'm not the only one having these issues. So with all this in mind, I went looking for an alternative, a machine that would let me cut the material the way I want to cut it with the settings I want in a software that was reliable. And it turns out that machine does exist. I want to introduce you to one of the machines from the X tool line, the M1 Ultra. And before I start talking about this awesome tool, I want to point out Xtool didn't send this machine. I am not part of the Creator Club. I get nothing from them at this point. I don't even have an affiliate link to share with you guys. I bought the M1 Ultra with my own money after looking at its specs and its capabilities and the growing list of accessories that they've made available. And all I have to say is Cricut needs to step up their game, because this machine is a game changer. The M1 Ultra is advertised as a multi-craft tool that actually has changeable heads that let you do everything from basic cutting to foiling, drawing, printing, laser cutting, and it even has a multi-mode option where you can do several of these steps all in one run. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I have a set of laser machines, and they are a favorite toy of mine. What might actually surprise you is I don't actually ever plan on using the diode laser that came with this machine. That's right, I have a laser and I'm not planning on using it. Part of that is the fact that the bed size on the M1 Ultra is 300 by 300 millimeters, and my GQ Cloud over here is 300 by 510. It's also a CO2 laser versus a diode laser, and that handles a much wider spectrum of materials, particularly with acrylic. Diodes do have a color limitation when it comes to cutting acrylic, so you're limited to a certain number of dark colors, whereas the CO2, there's no limitation. I can cut everything from clear all the way to black. That being said, the diode laser on this machine is a great starter if you don't have a laser at home. This is a great machine to kind of introduce you into that field and get a feel of what you can do with those. But I don't plan on doing really any tutorials related to that. So there's really no need for me to use the laser attachment on the M1 Ultra. What I was interested in was the other modes that the machine has to offer. One of the reasons I think I actually like the M1 Ultra so much is that the machine is designed to use a laser, and it's designed by a laser focused brand, which I think is what makes this machine work so well. It's coming from the laser school of thought when it comes to software. So before I talk about the problems the M1 Ultra solves, let me give you some quick specs and compare it to the Cricut. The working area on a Cricut Explorer Maker typically is that you can cut up to 11.5 inches wide by 23.5 inches long, so 292 by 597 millimeters. If you use their smart materials, you can get a whole extra 0.2 of an inch, bringing it to a total of 11.7 by 23.5, or 297 by 597 millimeters. Basically an extra 5 millimeters with that known material waste that I pointed out earlier, I might add. The M1 Ultra, the area varies slightly depending on which tool you're working with, but for the fine point blade, you've got a working area of 11.81 inches squared, which is 300 by 300 millimeters. The knife blade, which is used to cut thicker things, is 11.61 squared, so 295 by 295 millimeters. So right out of the box, you're getting a wider area, but you are limited in length. I typically don't cut things that require a 24-inch mat on a regular basis. In fact, I think I've cut maybe 2 projects that size. I know one project was a decal for my mom's kitchen that she wanted on the wall, and it was a much longer piece, and I think I actually bought the mat at that time to do that project. I use the mats now because Cricut has become a pain in the butt and insists that I load a 24-inch mat in order to do my sticker hack. But otherwise, I would typically just use a 12 by 12 inch mat. So for me, this really isn't a deal breaker, but I do acknowledge that for some people that absolutely need that extended length, this machine would not work very well. Now, I've said before, the M1 Ultra can cut with a fine point blade and a deep blade, as well as a laser, but it also has the ability to foil, draw with a pen, use a rotary blade for cutting fabric, and it has a print cartridge that will print in CMY, and recently they've added a hot foil tip that fits seamlessly into the machine. The Cricut Explorer, of course, has a slot for the pen as well as the knife blade, deep blade, and the foil tip. But for any of those other tools, such as an engraving tip, a fine debossing tip, and the rotary blade, you're going to need the Cricut Maker, which is their higher end model. So the biggest difference here is the addition of the laser, the print cartridge, and the hot foil tip. There aren't any alternatives for the Cricut versus the M1 Ultra. As I said before, I'm not using the laser on this machine, and I will be honest, I feel like the print cartridge gives a very vintage look due to the lack of black ink. They typically will combine all the colors to create that effect. So anything I'm printing, I'm just going to go ahead and run on my Epson printer and not print inside the X tool. However, that is an option if you want to. And what is nice is that the X tool print cartridge actually uses the same HP 66 print cartridge, so you don't even have to buy theirs. You could go to really your local Staples or even your local Walmart and pick up a replacement cartridge if you want it. But the hot foil tip, that's a tool I like. There is an off-brand accessory for Cricut. I think it's called Foil Quill. I don't know if it's actually still being produced for the Cricut. I know I bought one when I had my Explorer Air 2, and I've used it on that machine as well as the Explorer 3 that I've got, and I've honestly struggled to get really good results. I know that there's also that downside of when you're using the Cricut foiling tip that to get the best results, you really have to use their foil because it's designed for like a pressure transfer, and finding other foils that do that same transfer of via pressure can be a bit difficult. With the hot foil tip, you're going to get a broader range of foils that are available. Pretty much any hot foil will work. Brands that include that are Spellbinders, and Decofoil also has a hot foil line as well. Just make sure you're buying their hot foil and not their transfer foil, which is designed to be used with, for instance, like laser jet printers that use toner ink. And I have tried to play with that feature and trying to get them to line up with a printed design on my Epson machine is an absolute nightmare. I cannot get the alignment to work no matter what I try. So it's pretty much pointless. I was looking for an alternative for foiling stickers. One final thing I do want to note is the thickness of the material. Cricut Explorer 3 can cut materials up to 2 millimeters thick, and the Cricut Maker up to 2.4. The X tool says that with its knife blade, so the deeper blade, it can cut up to 2.5 millimeters in thickness. So you get a little bit more, but it's not really a major difference. So let's get to using the machine itself. All of my frustrations that I have with the Cricut, the M1 Ultra addresses. The machine is designed to cut on a mat that is secured inside housing, and it actually doesn't even care what mat you put in there. For instance, I put a Cricut mat in the machine as just kind of a trial to see if it would work. Also because the initial mats that the M1 Ultra comes with are very, very sticky, which as anybody who's worked with a cutting mat for like a Cricut or possibly even a Silhouette, that tends to be a problem right out of the box. You got to get the mat to destickify a little bit if you're working with certain materials. So I actually tried on an older Cricut mat and it cut beautifully. It does not care what mat you put in the machine. The only downside to that is that you're going to need to tape the mat in place if you're using the Cricut mat, because the X-Tool mats are actually designed to secure themselves by using the adhesive sticky side on the back of the mat. If you flip the mat, you have the option of seeing things either in millimeters or inches depending on your preference. The opposite side then provides that adhesive binding that will secure it inside the machine. I learned that the hard way, that you have to have the adhesive active and it's secured down, otherwise it just kind of moves around in the machine, and that's a bad day. And they do actually have a little warning in their like processing page that make sure you secure the mat or things can go bad. I just wasn't paying attention. Nobody's perfect. But I will tell you that Xtool has also introduced a new accessory that actually eliminates the need for any sticky mat. And I will talk more about that in a little bit. My second issue has been the limitations of the area for print and cut, because in order to use Cricut's print and cut feature, you have to have the registration marks, and you either will print out a sheet of stickers and lose quite a bit of an area, or we're stuck playing around with the sticker hack that I created that, of course, is now frustrating because it insists that I must use a bigger mat. To say nothing of the fact that you have to have access to a printer that will print a tabloid size template, and I know for many users that's quite a problem. With the Xtool, the alignment system is completely different. It uses a coordinate system for its positioning. So instead of me having to employ this hack, I can simply just import the image of my stickers, have Xtool trace it to create the cut lines that I need, and then it's just really a matter of lining it up onto where the sticker sheet is on the map, and it will cut it straight there. You can use a photo to line things up, red dot positioning, or you could even create a simple jig based on your origin point. And by the way, all of these options come from this laser school thought. These are the same methods that I would use to line something up using either my F1 Ultra or my Gweike Cloud. They all give decent results, but I find that the red dot positioning and the jig method seem to work the best. And I plan on showing you how to use both of those methods in future videos this month. Another feature that gets pulled over from the laser school of thought is the fact that not only can I control the pressure and the number of passes on the machine, I can also control its speed. And it will do this all in one job. That's right. No more having to run a job multiple times to use different settings, or having to set up multiple layers in designs to get multiple passes. I can do all of this simply by adjusting the settings on the cut lines. I don't have to do any duplication attachment hacks. I can just tell the software, I want this line to be cut with 2 passes at a specific speed and at a specific pressure. And the pressure is actually measured in grams, whereas with Cricut, you're given a number, but from anything I can tell online, it's like a proprietary arbitrary system. They've never said what the measurement is. So like, for instance, if another machine happens to come out on the market and maybe you need to cut them on that, you could technically take the settings that you've been using on this machine as a starting point to that machine, because you know that, say, in order to cut a die pass on stickers, you need 140 grams of pressure going at 80 millimeters per second speed with a blade. Like that is a universal measurement that you can then take somewhere else, versus, well, I use the Cricut pressure setting of 150 for 2 passes. 150 what? How hard would it be to tell us, Cricut? Come on. I can even go a step further and actually create multiple test cuts that allow me to figure out what setting I need for whatever material I'm working with, and I can do this all in one run. That way I can dial in the perfect pressure and speed to get the material that I want, particularly if I'm wanting to try and do it in just one pass. And I can do this all in a single process. And of course, my final frustration is that I no longer have to use Design Space. Xtool has its own software that does not feature a subscription model, and all of the settings and features are available there for free. They do have sort of a marketplace called Design Find if you're interested in additional projects, most of which are free, but there are some premium ones that you can certainly purchase if you want, but it's not required. And I'm not against this, as these are created by community designers and they deserve to be paid for their work. And I find that the software doesn't seem to randomly crash or do weird things. I'm looking at you, Design Space. I only wish the software could be used on non-Xtool model lasers, because I have found it actually to be easier to use than Lightburn, but I can't necessarily blame Xtool for that. Yes, it is nice when software accommodates multiple brands, but it's not a requirement. We have to admit that companies are allowed to control what their software is allowed to interact with, and there are plenty of companies that lock it down to their own systems. I mean, Cricut's Design Space is only designed for Cricut cutters. You can't hook Cricut Design Space up to a silhouette machine, and nobody seems to complain about that. My only argument is that if you're gonna lock it down, at least make it stellar software that makes me want to work within your hardware bubble. Preferably one with all the options available for free and an optional subscription model if maybe you want to have access to like premium designs or make designs available that you can just purchase them individually. I don't like the fact that the sticker function in Cricut is locked down behind their subscription model, though people have commented that if you use that function, you're then locked into just using Cricut's sticker paper settings, which doesn't allow you to adjust them. So if you do like I do and you use like an off-brand vinyl sticker paper that works really well and you put on a layer of laminate, odds are that's not going to work. Kind of crappy, Cricut. People are paying for a premium feature, but then you insist they have to use your material? The heck, mates? So now that I've gone over the failures of the Cricut machine and the holes that M1 Ultra fits in, let's talk about what's probably going to be the biggest factor for many people, and that's the cost. Cricut has a few machines on their line. The Cricut Explorer, which recently replaced the Cricut 3 without warning, I might add, costs $249, and the Cricut Maker 4 costs $399. There's also the Cricut Venture, which apparently uses a 24-inch wide size mat, but it's also more limited in the allotted materials you can use, and it costs about $699. I'm not really familiar with the Cricut Venture, and I see a lot of mixed reviews online with it, so admittedly I'm not going to talk about that machine much here. But know that it is available for that price. So with each machine, you're only going to get one mat and the fine point blade. If you want any other options, you're going to have to purchase those accessories separate, most of which actually only work on the Cricut Maker 4. So to match up the pricing between both devices so that you end up with the same settings and the same general functions, let's assume that you're going to get the Maker 4 model since the Explorer 4 doesn't work with most of them. You're also going to need to purchase a strong grip mat for the Maker 4 because the M1 Ultra actually comes with two mats, a light grip mat and a strong grip mat, which is more of a fabric mat. So for the Maker 4, if you're going to get all those extra tools, the additional strong grip mat, the price is going to come around to about $741, depending on whether or not you find any sales. If you're going to want to spend the least amount of money and have the fewest amount of options because you just need a standard, fine point blade cut, you're cutting things like vinyl or paper, then you're looking at $249 with just the Explorer 4, the fine point blade, and the single light grip mat. The M1 Ultra's basic bundle, which includes the fine point blade, the knife blade, the 10-watt laser module, the multi-module head, costs $999, and that will give you both the light grip mat and the strong grip mat. The advanced bundle, which was the one I got, cost $10.99, and it included the printer ink module, the rotary blade, the foil tip, as well as 8 color pins. In hindsight, I probably would have gotten the basic bundle had I realized that I didn't really like the print module, and I could have just purchased the rotary blade and the foil tips separate and saved myself about $60. But the ink module does run $199, so if that is something you're interested in, because it does allow you to print on things like, say, wood or other materials that maybe I can't run in the printer, which could be a cool feature, and I might play around with that in the future. By grabbing the advanced bundle, you are actually saving a little bit of money. So for comparison, if you were to get the base bundle plus the rotary blade and the foil transfer tip, since both the fine point and the knife blade and the fabric mat are all in the original box, it would be $10.59. But Xtool does have a secret coupon that will let you take off an additional $150 if you fill out their trade-in device form. And don't worry, you don't have to trade in your device to do this. Though they do encourage you to donate it or recycle it, it's really just a form you fill out. You put in your email, what device you're trading in, along with a picture of it, and why you're choosing to trade it in, and they will send you a unique personalized code. And this works for multiple machines they sell, but for the M1 Ultra, the coupon is valued at $150. It's good for about 10 days, and don't worry if you need more time to think about it. You can always fill the form out again, and they will send you a new code. I think it's mostly just a marketing gimmick, to be honest, but hey, I'm not going to say no to a free coupon. So with that coupon, the cost ends up coming down to $909. I can understand for many people that's quite a price jump. So it's up to you if you think this machine is worth having. I really think it is, but I also know I have a level of crafting privilege because I can afford this tool. Do I absolutely recommend this tool? Oh, 100%. This is an awesome tool to have, a great thing to have in your craft shop. And depending on what you do, you could earn that money back fairly easily, but I do acknowledge that it is an investment. Also, since I didn't know where to put this, I would like to point out that for any of you who are interested in playing with the diode laser on the machine and are coming from the vinyl cutting world, I want you to know, do not use the diode laser to cut vinyl. Hopefully Xtool software has an alert somewhere in it that tells you not to do this, but I'm going to tell you guys here as well. Most vinyls are made of a PVC plastic, and if you expose that to heat, it's going to trigger a chemical reaction that produces chlorine gas and hydrochloric acid when it's burned. And not only is that going to corrode your machine, but it's also extremely toxic to breathe. It's the same reason why you don't mix household cleaners. You can use the laser to cut things like wood, acrylic, leather, PU leather, so it's a type of fake leather, not the real one, although you can use real leather, it's just going to smell. But specific vinyl leather, make sure it says that it's PU leather, just to be on the safe side. I mean, you can even use paper, honestly, to be cut with a laser cutter. That's really great for making super fine cuts, and they can be done very quickly. But don't use the laser to cut vinyl. Stick to the fine point blade. That's pretty much the end of my rant on my frustrations with Cricut and why I've decided to start using the Xtool M1 Ultra for doing my sticker cutting. Am I giving up completely on Cricut? No, not necessarily. I still have the machine and I'll keep it around for now and stay in the loop with their updates and products, but I don't know what the future holds. For now, I do plan on making a series of videos this month on how to use this machine, including implementing my full page sticker guide, which to me, using it in the M1 Ultra is much easier in my opinion. I want to show you guys how to work with this tool and how to use it, particularly for sticker designs and other paper-based projects. The previous templates that I've created and made available to you guys for full page stickers in Cricut, whether you're using Procreate, Photoshop, Canva, all of those will work completely fine in the M1 Ultra, and I will show you how you can use them in an upcoming video. I'm also going to show you a couple of the accessories that the M1 Ultra has available that they've recently released that really actually helped me decide to make this final switch. These are accessories that there's no comparison on Cricut, and that's the hot foil pen and the electrostatic mat. And guys, I gotta tell you, if you buy any accessory for this device, buy the electrostatic mat. It is the best thing ever. Imagine having to eliminate the need of using an adhesive mat to hold down your material in place while you cut it. That's what this accessory does. It uses a small electrostatic charge to hold paper and vinyl in place while the M1 does the cutting, or if you're planning on foiling or printing, it will also hold the material in place for that. It's the coolest thing I've seen in a long time. So be on the lookout for future videos with this tool. I'll leave a link to the machine and the Xtool website in the description. Like I said, I don't even have an affiliate code to give you guys because this is completely my opinion. Xtool didn't pay me for this review. I'm not part of their creator content club. They offered, but I declined because I felt like I couldn't really meet their requirements. That being said, I really do like their machines. I think they do a great job trying to bring some of these tools to a, easier turnkey style environment, but still allowing you to make adjustments simply and easily. I run this channel by myself. If you want to support me, please be sure to tap the like button on the video and the subscribe button. If you get a chance, you can head over to my shop and browse the selection of items that I have for sale, including stickers, 3D printed bookmarks, and other designs that you guys might want. I hope to see all of you in another video. In the meantime, have a good day. Bye.